Today we sat and watched in horror as one of sumo's brightest hopes, Tomokaze, left the arena in a wheelchair, his right kneecap visibly dislocated. His push-out defeat to Kotoyuki looked completely innocuous, and yet, as he calmly tried to plant himself on the ringside floor, his 180-kilo frame asked too much of his right leg, and he collapsed in agony. Worse still, sumo's cramped ringside seating arrangements leave no room for wheelchairs to pass through. Against his better judgment, he allowed ringside staff to haul him up and walk him to the chair. He went to hospital immediately, whereupon his coach Oguruma angrily told reporters, "Of course he's pulling out." We'd already seen Goeido's ankle buckle yesterday. We almost saw 20-year-old Kotoshoho's do the same this afternoon. Thankfully, he escaped disaster. But we were once again reminded of the threats to even the strongest wrestlers' careers lurking in every area of the ring. Sumo executives may not wish to hear them, but there will be renewed calls for the ring to be lowered, the vicinity to be padded, and tournament numbers to be reduced in tandem with wrestler waistlines. But the more I watched today, the more I realized there's another debate about wrestler well-being to be had, on which the future of the sport clearly depends. You may remember how on day 11 in May, all competing sekiwake, Ozeki and Yokozuna lost for the first time since the 15-day system became standard in 1949. Today, it happened again. A hitherto once-in-a-lifetime scene witnessed for the second time in just 6 months. Mitake Umi fell stomach first against Hokuto Fuji. Tochinoshin did likewise against Myogiryu. Goeido defaulted. Takakeisho's predictable leftward movement was easily read by Asanoyama, Abi made a mockery of Takayasu's Tachi-ai, and Daieisho finally got his first win against Hakuho, merely by scoring a direct hit. We could conclude that today's underdogs are part of a uniquely strong breed, but a more plausible conclusion is never has sumo's elite been so collectively crocked. And, as I watched those high-ranked bodies humbled and dirtied one after the other, lamented how few Tomokazes there are and how an injury to just one of these hopes makes us fear for sumo's entire future, I realized there's a real problem which needs urgent tackling. Japan's national sport is heading into the excitement of a new decade with a crumbling talent infrastructure. The elite are too old and injured to carry the show. The top two divisions are collectively aging and near devoid of young talent. Nearly devoid. We know there are a couple of gems in there, obviously. And the management class tasked with solving this problem actually perceives itself as benefiting from the status quo. The immediate cause of the rise of the injured aging star is the unwanted pressure created by the 2020 Olympics. So short-termist do our sumo executives, read stablemasters, appear to be, that they feel the sport's entire future depends on how it looks in front of overseas cameras for the 2-week Olympic period. The national sport should be a source of national pride, goes the refrain, meaning that with the Kisena Sato plan dead and the Takayasu one seemingly a non-starter, they simply must have a Japanese Hakuho to show to the world. The problem is, as we saw this afternoon, his body screams for him to stop. As a sign of just how far he's pushing himself, today marked his 1,222nd appearance in Division 1, 10th place on the all-time list. And he's the only Yokozuna in that top 10. Even grand champions don't carry that level of expectation. Purely from a sumo perspective, he can't go on, but because of Japan's Olympic vanity, he must. And in addition to him, sumo's managers clearly feel Takayasu and Takakeisho must keep their Ozeki ranks until the summer despite injuries. Mitake Umi really must get up there to join them before then. And hopefully Asanoyama too. But why these Olympic deadlines? Why not just trust genuine sumo lovers to stick with the sport, no matter which ranks these wrestlers occupy come next July? And what comes after the Olympics? The aging injured stars will still be there, with an unprecedented shortage of young pretenders to their crown. There are no teenagers in the top two divisions, the combined average age of which is well over 28. In 1989, there were only 30 wrestlers over the age of 30 in the whole Sumo Association. Now there are 27 in the top two divisions alone. People can talk about advances in sports science, an increased number of late entrants to sumo, but why this extraordinary lack of young talent? Again, the stablemaster executives are to blame. They have created a system based on decentralized funding. It is up to the groups of stables, and more often individual stables, sometimes individual wrestlers, to attract their own sponsors. Of course, there are no fit and proper tests. Anybody who waves wads of cash is welcome. Now, when the stable boasts salaried wrestlers, the cash piles up. Literally, the cash piles up. Remember my post about the 10,000 yen notes being thrown into bags at parties. But when those salaried wrestlers retire, you can imagine the terrible financial blows to the stable. So the salaried wrestlers feel impelled to stay on, preferably until a junior stablemate can take over the mantle. Would Yoshikaze and Takekaze have continued for so long had Yago and Tomokaze come up earlier? Would Aminishiki have soldiered on had Terutsuyoshi come through faster? Because the moneyed fans of the veterans, who derive such pride from supporting them, will not necessarily gravitate towards their unsalaried stablemates. They might just walk away. And any sumo coach worth his salt would be loath to let that happen. Now, were there a more centralized funding system with a focus on organizational sponsorship from vetted companies and business people, and with clear rules about fair allocation, coaches wouldn't fear the loss of one salaried wrestler so much. But as it is, they hold on with dear life to what they have. Now people can rightly say, well, that kind of funding system has always been in place. It's not the only problem. Well, indeed it isn't. But its effects have certainly been worsened by a decision the stablemasters took almost 5 years ago to the day, on November the 16th, 2014. On that fateful day, the board of directors voted to increase their own retirement ages and that of every professional sumo coach from 65 to 70. They claimed, as many over 65s in Japan do, that they are living longer and should be working longer. In reality, I suspect, the older coaches were not ready to face society without their titles and privileges. What they effectively did was say to every wrestler without elder stock at that point, providing we enjoy good health, and give or take a couple of dismissals due to dissent and scandal, you'll all have to wait 5 extra years for our stock. And if a retired wrestler fails to buy or borrow that stock, he's out of the Sumo Association overnight and forced to devise an alternative career plan. That's why, incidentally, we can't expect Kakuryu to hang up his sash yet. He's considering staying on post-retirement, but is unable to even borrow elder stock until he claims Japanese citizenship. Unless he's secretly applied for it already, naturalization as a Japanese is several months away at least. Ergo, he must fight on. Ergo, every wrestler waiting longer for elder stock must fight on longer. Ergo, the phenomenon of the aging injured star and all its drop-down effects continues. Well, that's the diagnosis, but how on earth do we find the cure?